Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I think it's all morning still. 11 o'clock in Queensland, 10:30 in the Northern Territory, and 9 o'clock in Western Australia. I'm Dante St. James. I would take you through a bit of a look at networking on LinkedIn, a little bit less salesy than what a lot of LinkedIn presentations tend to be. And I'm coming to you from another hotel room because I'm in Brisbane at the moment. And the connection's great. The lighting is a little harsh, but let's just hope that the zoom filtering makes all those wrinkles go away nice and comfortably. We'll get underway in just a sec. Let's get that screen shared. Now, a lot of stuff today is going to be done on the LinkedIn platform, so I'll be going directly into there to show you how different things are done, but also looking at hopefully the mobile connection, if I can get the mobile to go as well, showing you some of the mobile-only features that happen in LinkedIn. So let's get underway and get this one showing. I'm hoping that's coming through loud and clear for you now, with business to business on LinkedIn, and I call it the subtle art of networking, building influence and growing an audience. If you want to drop a line in the chat during the way, probably the Q&A is the best place to drop a question if you've got one, but the chat will be monitored as well. I'll just be sort of in and out of there in bits and pieces, just helping to answer those questions as we do go along. All right, let's get it underway. This is brought to you by the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, brought to you by Business Station, Regional Development Australia, Brisbane, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. And look, you'll have the chance to be able to book a one-to-one with myself or one of the other amazing, talented advisors along the way as well, who are more than happy to share their expertise, their knowledge, and all their experience when it comes to platforms like LinkedIn or any other platform to do with social media, marketing, websites, e-commerce, cybersecurity, which is really important and no one seems to take it seriously, and all those small business systems you'll run. Everything from ServiceMate, which helps you to take bookings and allocate your time and invoice, through to Xero, which is all about invoicing and financial management of your business. So what we're going to cover today is setting an objective for how you want to go about approaching LinkedIn. We're going to look at working with the client journey when it comes to LinkedIn as well. These are just basic 101 marketing things. So if you've been in any one of my marketing related webinars lately, you may recognize some of this work. We'll look at one of the tools you can use to preview who is actually out there in LinkedIn land and whether they are people who suit what your objective is and where your client's journey might happen to be. We'll look at posting a bit of content. I might even post a bit of real stuff too, or building relationships. There's different ways or different channels you can go down to build that rapport, do that networking, and grow your audience on LinkedIn. We'll also look at posting content and the different placements you'll be able to cover that in. There's more than one place to do it. And building relationships. We'll look at the approach of working with the inbox, or what they call InMail, in LinkedIn as well. And finally, I'll show you the soft outreach method I've been using for probably the last 2 years. That's been really good at growing my audience, my influence, and especially doing it in such a way that it never feels like I'm trying to sell anyone anything. Because I guess at the core, I'm not really trying to sell anyone anything. I'm a business, but I'm still not necessarily out there to shove a message down people's throats and try and convert a sale from that first message, that first connection made. So let's get underway. What is your objective? Objective is just a really big fancy word for goal. I should change it over. What's your goal? What is the end goal of, all of your efforts when it comes to LinkedIn? Is your goal to get some awareness around who you are, to get known, to get some sort of reputation, to get presence and a little bit of reputation when it comes to your place on LinkedIn? If that's your place, well, LinkedIn is very good at that. If your goal is to get found, so when people are looking for the thing that you do, or especially if they're looking for you personally, LinkedIn is also very, very good about that. And when it comes to staying known, and that's the process of, I guess, people coming back to use you again or being able to refer you, by the very nature of it being a social network, even a professional social media network, means that you're in a position to very much, I want to say stay known, but I want to go a bit further than that and go to expand your network beyond just staying known with the people who know you. Because it's a social network, it's very easy for people to share their experiences with you, to receive recommendations for you, and to very quickly help make you known beyond their network as well. When it comes to getting known, LinkedIn is absolutely spot on right in that sandbox. The get known thing is really good on LinkedIn because it's a much smaller network of less than 1 billion people, whereas Facebook is, well and truly over they're up to about that 3 billion mark now. That's a ridiculous, about half the population of the planet now seems to be on Facebook or something to do with Facebook, whether it's Instagram or Messenger. But in LinkedIn, it's much smaller. In fact, it's around about that 600 million mark, which is still a lot of people. But that 600 million people means that there's still a lot of what we call organic reach. It's still fairly easy to be able to reach an audience and build one without having to pay for it. And that's what's really important is that the difference between, I guess, Facebook and LinkedIn now is that Facebook is almost a pay to play environment for business. Growing organic reach on Facebook is getting harder and harder unless you do it, say, through your personal profile. And when you do it through your personal profile, the problem is you're very limited to 5,000 friends. And then once you get to that, you really have to go into the business page level. And as all of us probably know, business pages barely reach anybody these days unless you are paying to boost something through or you've got an ads campaign of some sort. Like for instance, myself, when I've got these particular webinars, I know that they're hardly going to reach anybody. So what I need to do is then boost them through on Facebook to get to thousands more people who I know will either need this message or who could be potential clients for me in the future. So the whole idea of a high organic reach when it comes to LinkedIn means that you don't necessarily now have to go through that process, that the reach through the people who follow you on your feed is much higher, mostly because you're posting from your personal profile on LinkedIn rather than posting from, say, a LinkedIn company page, which is... That's the name that LinkedIn gives the equivalent of what we call a business page on Facebook. So a Facebook business page is your business presence on Facebook. A LinkedIn company page is your business presence on LinkedIn. But because most of us are operating out of our personal profiles on LinkedIn, that reach is still so much easier to get. It's still much, much easier to be able to get yourself out into a bigger network than what it is on Facebook. Consistency is still something which works really well on LinkedIn, whilst there's some things that will occasionally go viral because they've got some very universal interest to them. There's still this theory that if you post consistently and you interact consistently and you get yourself a very formulaic, very, very systemized approach to how you post and interact and answer and reach out and do your thing on LinkedIn, that it's still something in there that can help you to grow without, again, having to pay for ads to get that reach out there. And that big thing called personal branding, or you might want to call it reputation, building a reputation, both those things are very much encouraged on LinkedIn by the fact that they have reviews, well, not reviews, but recommendations, where people can recommend you. People can vouch for you knowing a particular skill, that kind of thing, which makes it really so much easier for people to be able to do your marketing for you. So that personal branding, getting to know people, getting to put your face in front of people, being able to get yourself a reputation of sorts is strongly encouraged on LinkedIn. In fact, it's almost expected on LinkedIn, whereas on Facebook it can feel a little bit, I don't know, intrusive. It feels a little bit disingenuous. You feel like even if you're very comfortable with the idea of personal branding or growing a reputation, it still feels that little bit weird that you're promoting yourself as a business to a group where your mum is in and where your grandmother is in and where your aunts and uncles and cousins are in, and they've known you much longer before you did this big business thing. So they see this activity on Facebook and it feels a bit weird. But on LinkedIn, that's not exactly a weird thing because it is actually expected. We expect people to be self-promotional. We expect and actually enjoy people promoting and positioning themselves on LinkedIn because we find there's something to learn from them, particularly if they're doing more than just blowing their own trumpet, but they've actually got a bit to back it as well. The getting found part of LinkedIn is because, well, LinkedIn profiles, they rank really high in search results. So if I look for myself on Google, for instance, I type in my name, some of the very first things that come up are my website, my Facebook account, and my LinkedIn account. And that's because LinkedIn is regarded as a very high domain authority domain. So LinkedIn.com itself is considered to be a very authoritative place when it comes to the name of a person or the name of a company. So whether it's your company name or your own name, if you've got that listed in LinkedIn, it is very, very likely that that will show up in the Google search results, and it'll give you that added little piece of link, I guess, back to your website. But more importantly, a link from Google to a profile that you are active on, particularly if you are active on LinkedIn. So if you're more than just someone who has your equivalent of your resume up there, if you've got, for instance, you're very active, you post a lot, you give a lot of value, you add a lot of material, you're actually putting a lot of time and effort into your LinkedIn profile, then having people land on that once they've found you on Google is really powerful, because they can see that you're not only alive, that you're not only active, but you're adding value in there as well. But LinkedIn's search engine actually works really well. Unsurprised, I'm actually surprised by this because it's owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft's search engine being is so bad. So we're so used to Google being such a good at search engine, and when it comes to social media, to Facebook being such a bad search engine. Like, how bad is Facebook search? I look for myself on Facebook and I cannot find my business page, which is my exact name that I've typed into the search engine. I have to go through about 3 or 4 different clicks to go and actually find a reference to my business page that is the exact same name of what I've typed into Facebook. It's not a great search experience because Facebook itself really isn't much of a search engine. LinkedIn, on the other hand, actually is an excellent search engine. It works really well, not just for searching for the name of a particular person or looking for the company page of a particular person. It's also really useful for finding people in certain job titles, certain companies, certain industries where you can look for those people quite specifically. Like, you can type in their name. You can type in, Jeff, sales manager, and it'll bring up Jeffs and sales managers in a combination that is very relevant to you. They could be a connection of yours already if you've gotten who it was and you don't want to search through your 20,000 followers, or you want to go and then you want to be able to narrow it down by people who are not connected to you, but connected to someone who is connected to you. That search engine is great. And what is called Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, is very good for identifying very specific people. So for instance, if you're looking to recruit a particular high executive job in your company, then to find someone who fits that skill is actually really, really effective on LinkedIn. Being essentially one great big global resume means that a lot of people put a lot of detail about their experiences and their skills and their education into LinkedIn, which means those fields are very easy to search for. Now, Sales Navigator is not a search tool for you. It's more of a search tool to find people to send a message to through InMail, but it's very, very useful for finding those particular people. Now, Sales Navigator is not free. You will have to pay for the LinkedIn premium to be able to get access to that. And then Sales Navigator itself is a premium add-on to LinkedIn Premium. So it's mostly used by recruiters, but it's also used by people who are looking to send very targeted, specific marketing messages to very targeted, specific people. Let's just say that you were someone who had a new Bush Foods ingredient that you wanted to include in a L'Oreal moisturizer. You can find the research and development team at L'Oreal Australia and actually send them a message direct to their LinkedIn profile using Sales Navigator. So the search engine, that finding thing, even though it's a bit of a roundabout thing when it comes to finding very specific people that you're not related to, the LinkedIn search engine itself is very powerful and can help you to identify those people who are the important people, decision makers, when you want to find them. The stay known section, and this is all based on by get known, get found, stay known, 3 major pillars of marketing, that all marketing activities essentially come under those 3 different goals. So in the stay known, recommendations are something that actually is read and they're shared on timelines, so that if you are recommending someone, it lets them know that you recommended them. If they recommend you, your friends will know that they're recommended with you. Not friends, but connections they'll be known that someone's recommended you. Just like in Facebook, you can retarget your website visitors. That's becoming a little bit harder now that the iOS 14 updates come, and we're hearing whispers that Android 2 will be able to block that the tracking of cookies, for instance, where you go to a website, say, I'll just give the Jetstar website as an example. You go to the Jetstar website to look at a fare, and then for the next 2 days, you seem to find Jetstar ads wherever you go, and every time you go to Facebook, Jetstar ads are coming up. That's called remarketing or retargeting, and that is possible right now through the LinkedIn ads platform. Not through any other way, you have to pay for it, but it is something which is possible right now, although it's becoming less effective. There's also built-in messaging, which allows for very easy follow-up. So allowing yourself to stay known to someone who you had a good conversation with 2 weeks ago, dropping in, staying in touch, keeping the fire burning is very easy to do because of the built-in messaging that happens in there as well. You've got this very good track of your conversations with people through messaging, through InMail, just the same way as you've got through Messenger on Facebook. Very much the same kind of thing, perhaps not to quite the same degree as with the CRM-like abilities that Facebook has, particularly through your business page. If you've ever noticed on Facebook, you've got a business page, an inbox, allows you to label and put notes against different contacts you've got. You don't have that quite ability in LinkedIn, but I'd say that is coming down the track, especially with their very large integrations with systems like Salesforce and the ability for other CRMs, other customer relationship management systems to be able to plug into the data of LinkedIn and be able to help you to then bring people into either your sales funnel out on HubSpot, or more commonly that you'll continue the conversation in a place that includes their email so that you don't have to deal with them just on the LinkedIn platform itself. And while there are some amazing automation tools out there that allow you to automatically respond to people who are connect requesting to you, people who you haven't had a conversation with in 2 weeks, there's these automated prompts that can do that. If LinkedIn finds out you're using them, they will ban you. They do not like automated tools, especially in the messaging section of their platform. If they see that you're doing it, if they suspect you're doing it, they will ban you. It's only a matter of time. But by goodness, there are some amazing ones out there. Meet Alfred, I think, is one that a friend of mine has pointed me to. It's a really good system. It's almost like a CRM for LinkedIn. It's just such a brilliant thing. Automates the responses, brings people out into a sales funnel, sends them email in such a good way. I guess you'd have to treat those things very, very carefully so that you're not treating them as necessarily a sales tool. You're using them as a relationship nurturing tool. And I think that's where social media marketing really can fall down, is that we tend to want to spam and scam our way through to people's inboxes and try and talk them into buying things that they have no intention buying, when really, I guess, people are on there to interact with people, not to interact with companies. Even on LinkedIn, where we are more tolerant to dealing with companies and businesses, the whole idea of being spammed by someone straight from the get-go that buy my thing after you've 2 minutes after you've connected with them, it's just really distasteful and it doesn't really work. So when it comes to working with the client journey, and those of you who were in one of my workshops last week, and I was one of two of you on this webinar, will know the journey between awareness, consideration, and conversion. So if we go into a very brief understanding of what the client journey is, awareness is where people don't know you, they don't know what you do, they don't necessarily care about what you do. They are not looking for that right now. They're definitely not ready to buy and not really ready to connect with you. As they move through the journey towards you, they go into a phase called consideration. And consideration is where they may know you, they may want what you do. They're not quite ready to commit just yet. Some are, but they're mostly comparison shopping between you and others who do the thing that you do. So whatever your niche is, whatever your business purpose is, they're shopping around others who do what you do as well. And when it comes to conversion, that's where they're really ready to connect. They've already had that relationship building. They've already shopped around. They're ready to buy. They're ready to commit. But they're also highly distracted and they're highly susceptible to the fear of loss, which means that the loss of their money in exchange for whatever your product is you're going to come back with. So this is where things get a little bit hairy, a little bit scary, is that they're not quite... when we post to something like LinkedIn or post to something like Facebook, we're not always considering where the client happens to be in their journey towards you. A lot of us just post sales material, assuming that everyone's ready to convert with us right now. That is definitely not the case. In fact, in over 90% of cases, that is not the case. And then some of us also do a lot of branding, which just makes people in the awareness stage really notice you. So what do you do when you work with that? Well, in LinkedIn, the client journey looks a bit like this. So in the awareness stage, you'll be looking at posting stuff about your brand, posting information about you, what you do, your values, that kind of thing. In there, you are looking at following people, so making people aware that you know them by following them. And we've got a little bit more on that later on. I'm actually going to go off and follow a bunch of people. And advertising is also a way of becoming aware, although really on LinkedIn at the moment, the smaller the business is, you probably don't need to do much advertising. The cost of advertising is in terms of a cost per click basis and a cost per action basis is more expensive than Facebook somewhat, quite significantly more expensive, but it does give you a very hyper-targeted business-to-business journey, which you can add to in this particular journey. Groups are a great place to get yourself known, particularly if they're very active groups. Maybe not groups that have like over 1 million people in it, because you'll just be another one of the crowd and you won't really stand out. But you could also be working in the awareness area where you're growing your company page, making people more aware that your company page exists. And that's where corporate messages and jobs and all that sort of thing are all done from. Now, in the consideration part of the journey, it's all about letting the client know about what your features and benefits are. What are the things you do and what's in it for them, the fact that you do those things. It can be where you preemptively answer the questions that people have. Doing a bit of an FAQ. What's the top 10 things that people ask you? Then you're turning those into your next 10 posts. Or participating in industry threads and groups. So for instance, there's a leader, or what we call a thought leader in a particular industry, and you're following them. Participating in their thread of comments can be a great way for people to notice you. And that's probably where, I've seen some really good growth in my own profile, is that I've been participating in the journeys and the conversations of people who are much more popular than I am, and they're much more, much better known than I am, and they're farther down that journey than what I am. And so I participate in those comments so that I'm now part of the conversation with them. And particularly if that person then replies to me, I still remember the day when Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a bit of an anti-hero of mine, responded to a comment that I put on there, and the rush I got from that was just incredible, because here's a man with millions and millions and millions of followers who's got, is a billionaire now. The guy is just pretty incredible. Yet he answered my comment. Now, it may not have been him, it may have been his team, but for me, that was a really cathartic moment, and it led to over 30 new followers just from that one comment that was noticed on his thread. Because they thought, well, if he answered me, then I must be someone special or someone important, and so they went, oh, maybe we should be following him as well. And then the conversion side of things is where you're showing your capability. So you're giving someone a reason to feel safe to proceed with some kind of client arrangement with you. It's where you indicate your availability, where you provide a link through to, say, a booking platform like Calendly or Timely or whatever the booking platform that you use. And it can also be showing conversion through the, excuse me, I don't know why I'm doing that. This room's getting a little bit warm. We're having a slight heat wave in Brisbane apparently, so if I feel the door, it actually feels pretty warm out there. So in the conversion journey as well, it's by using the advertising platforms. So actually drawing people to that point of actually buy now, book now, download, any of those kind of calls to action on a particular ad that's inside the LinkedIn ads journey as well. So those can provide you that very pointy end of the customer journey, from awareness, consideration, to actually clicking the button, downloading the thing, making the call, or buying the thing that you're advertising or posting that you want them to buy. So how do I actually know who is out there in LinkedIn land? You can do your research by surfing around profiles, and that's actually a really cool way to do it. We'll do that in a second too. Or you could use the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, which is their ads platform, to preview the market. So I'm going to pop out of here now into my LinkedIn account. We're going to have a bit of a look in a live account. Hopefully you can see this on screen. So this is my account, looking kind of messy and all that. So LinkedIn's not the tidiest of all platforms, but it sort of makes sense what it is. So if I was looking to surf around platforms, let's say I'm looking for somebody who is a web developer. So I'll look for web developer Darwin. And then what this does, if I give all sorts of results, I can now still see people who are web developers in the greater Darwin area where I am from. So I can start to see them, or I can see people. And then if I wanted to know all these people, connect with them. So notice how there's all these connections here. I can connect with them. What I really want to do though is mainly follow these people. I don't necessarily need them to be connected to me. I don't necessarily need them to be my friend. But what I would like to do is have some sort of early stage relationship with these people who I think are very good at what they do. Mick Elliott, who I think is quite a very talented web developer in Darwin. So what I will do is, instead of going connect, I'm going to go follow. So if he ever decides to post anything, I'm going to see it. Now I can see here, it doesn't look like he actually posts very much at all, but that's fine. When he does choose to post, we are there. But I've also made myself him aware of who I am through this as well. So I can go back now and continue on my little list down there, looking for the kind of people I'm after and the people I want to connect with. So I can go, okay, there's Jed. I don't know Jed, but I'm going to take a look at him. You go, yeah, okay, he knows some stuff. He's got some mutual connections with me as well. So there's a very good chance that he could be someone who's, someone who I could develop some kind of online relationship with. In this case, though, he's in Perth. I'm looking for people specifically in Darwin. So at some stage in the last year, he actually moved from Darwin to Perth. So in that case, probably not the guy I'm looking for. And as I work down that list, I'll find some people I know, some people I'm connected to already. If I'm looking for a very specific group, see now because I'm looking for a web developer, it's immediately saying, hey, here's a couple of variations on that you may think are quite useful for you, like a front-end developer or a JavaScript developer. And if I'm looking for those particular kinds of people, then it throws them up in front of me. In this case, someone who's decided to hide themselves a bit from LinkedIn, but here's Ayush and Binod, who are both people who work in front-end web development in Darwin. So that's a good start for me. I can surf around and look for those things and look for people. I can look for companies that are due to front-end development. Not really a great match there because that's in Edinburgh and Durham. They're both in the UK. If I'm looking for maybe somebody who is a front of house manager who happens to be in the Darwin region. Sorry, I've got a really clicky-clacky desk here. So here's like someone who I'm vaguely related to, who's a front of house manager, or I might want to see more results. So I go through there now. I'm going to start to see people who are related to somehow the front of house manager. I can see jobs the front of house manager. You see Angie looks to be posting something about front of house, but not really. If I'm looking for someone in hotel jobs. So you start to see when you can look at more than just people, you can start to now see people who are front of house managers at Sugar and Nice, front of house manager at TGI Fridays. So you start to see a whole bunch of additional stuff in there that points you to particular people who have that particular kind of job. So it's a really good way of finding people that way, and then you can connect with them. Now, I don't have a need to follow anyone who's a front of house manager. What I might want to do though, I want to find people who work for Facebook in Australia. So I can see, okay, here's the Facebook one. I can now also see that there's people. So jobs, people. Now I see a bit more because I pay for LinkedIn Premium, so I can see a lot more in here. So I can narrow this down to a very specific place. So I'm going to add Sydney, which is where I know a few people who work down there that I might want to connect with. Helps if I spell it correctly. So I'm looking for people who work at Facebook. And there's not a lot of people listed. There you go, 212 in Sydney. So I can click on there, and now I can start to look at who are the people who are in that area that I want to look for. So out of 82,175 employees, I'm now listing the people who work at Sydney's Facebook Australia location. So I can start to see there's one or two I've already recognized that I've worked with before. There you go. And I can start to see people who are then located a bit further out along that trip. So they might not be people who work in Sydney, but people who work sort of alongside that. So then I can narrow that down, find specific people to connect with. And then once I find them, let's just say, so this guy, David Sinfield, he's based in Sydney. I'm just going to go and I'm going to, it doesn't allow me to follow him. It only allows me to connect with him. So he's actually disabled the ability to be able to follow. So even though I'd like to follow him, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to pull back out and I'll look for other people who are in there. Now, the other way for me to start to look for people on LinkedIn and how to connect and people to connect with on LinkedIn is through the ads platform as well. Now, this is more to give me an idea of who is out there. If there's a market out there for what I'm looking to do. So if I'm let's say I'm going to market my services to business owners in Cairns, or at least people who make marketing decisions in Cairns, I can actually do that through LinkedIn's marketing solutions. Now, the marketing solutions are over under the work menu. That is the ads platform for LinkedIn. So it's just a fancy word for the ads platform. What I'm then going to be doing as I go in here, they don't have quite the same level of tools that Facebook has. It's not as quite as a mature ad platform. That said, it's still pretty damn good. I can go in there and go create an ad. Now, this is not going to literally create an ad and go live. I'm just going to use the tools. I'm going to use an account that I've already got. So let's just say I'll use my Clickstarter account. Go into the campaigns, and I've done some previous campaigns in here. I'm going to create a new campaign. So in this new campaign, I'm going to set a bunch of parameters. Excuse me. So as I get in here, I go, okay, I'm going to create the default campaign group. I'm not looking to do anything really out there. What is the thing I want to do? Now, look at this. Recognize these: awareness, consideration, and conversion. These are the 3 stages of the customer journey we're looking at. This is also how the Facebook Ads Manager works. So you've worked through 3 distinct stages of where you want to meet the customer at, whether you want to get some brand awareness, whether you want to get some consideration and you want to have them shop around with you, or whether you actually want to generate leads or website conversions or getting job applicants. Now, in my case, I just want to get them knowing who I am. So I'm going to go brand awareness for now. And now I can start to look around the different sides of the market. So what it's telling me now is that within Australia, down here, that there's 12 million plus target audience size in LinkedIn. So in amongst all that, I go, okay, if I want to reach 12 million people, I've got the opportunity to do that, but it's going to take me to get 160 to 980 clicks in over 30 days. It's going to cost me about $670 to $900. It's a lot more expensive than what it is for Facebook. That said, I've gone very wide here to a very broad audience. I might want to narrow that down now. I want to go to people who are permanently located in Cairns, in far north Queensland. I want to take out Australia, just have Cairns. Look how it's now gone to 55,000 plus people. So it's now telling me that over 30 days I can reach this many clicks as well. But the problem is that now what I'm getting, let's just take down to 7 days. I don't want to spend that ridiculous amount. $160 to $210 over 7 days is fairly reasonable for a campaign that's looking to get a very specific outcome. So if I look at that and go, okay, this is something I can expect to reach people in Cairns. The thing is, though, I don't want to reach everyone in Cairns. I want to get somebody who has a particular attribute to them. So as I go further down, where is my target audience? I know there's 55,000 people on LinkedIn in Cairns. I want to narrow that down. I want to narrow it further by adding some kind of audience data or some kind of audience attribute. So the audience attribute for me will be something like they have a certain level of education, job experience, interests. So if I go interests, and they might be an interest in something like small business. So member interests, I can go general interests. Business and management might be like something which is fairly in there. They're definitely someone who's interested in marketing and advertising. In fact, I'm going to take out the business and management, go straight to marketing and advertising. So if I was to look in Cairns region, in Australia, for people who are just interested in marketing and advertising, so it's an interest, not a job role, I've got 24,000 people. So it's telling me that there's quite a strong interest level out of 55,000, so 24,000 in that region in marketing and advertising. If I take that out, now, for instance, I wanted to reach people who are retail store managers or owners or have an interest in sales and retail, then I can look at 17,000 there. If I go back up those member interests, I then get a bit further into, out of sales and retail, look for people who are interested in particular products that I might sell. So I might be selling a customer relationship management system. So if I look at that and people have shown that there's an interest in customer relationship management systems in Cairns, it tells me the audience is too small. So I would say, okay, for me to produce an ads campaign or to reach out very specifically about CRM systems in Cairns is probably not going to be a great idea. What I may want to do is then go, well, I'm still going to sell this CRM software, but I need to make my place a bit bigger, my target a bit bigger. So I'll add in things like Townsville, Toowoomba, I might add in, Rockhampton. And look, that immediately I've added in two other towns, two other large towns in Queensland, and immediately I've gone up to 410 plus people who have an interest in something to do with customer relationship management systems at the moment. They're displaying that particular interest level, which means that there's an interest in Queensland for that kind of thing, particularly in the regions. If I was to go, outside that and go, let's say Brisbane, that would jump dramatically. There you go. Take out the small towns, Toowoomba, and then I left with 8,400 just in Brisbane. So I now know that there's not a huge interest in CRMs outside of the capital city, but there is still enough interest if I wanted to go, okay, those people exist. I can either advertise to them, or what I can do is look for people who sort of match that and see if I can reach out to them or in some way post material that's targeted towards people in those areas. So I can have a post that even says, hey Cans, I'm coming to see you, who's interested in CRMs? And that could be something which then people are able to share to say that there's someone coming to town who's presenting on customer relationship management systems. And that could be a really effective way for you to reach people through there. So I'm going to save and exit out of that. There's a lot more options in there. Like you could go on and form things around a whole lot of different interests, way, way, way beyond just going into your ads campaigns. Now that's just looking plainly and simply at trying to see who it is that's out there and whether that audience for you exists on the LinkedIn platform. So in our case, we found that if I was looking in Queensland to run an ad campaign, that 8,800 people in Queensland is probably easy for me to reach. But if I wanted to reach people who are interested in customer relationship management systems in smaller places like Cairns, Townsville and Toowoomba, then there's not really a lot. So having an ads campaign probably wouldn't be that effective, although it does tell me that there is at least some interest there, and it could be that I need to use some other method of advertising or promoting myself to reach them. Speaking about reach, how do we reach people on LinkedIn? The two primary ways we do it is by posting content that attracts them to us, or building rapport with them directly through what I call soft outreach. So I'll show how that works. When you're posting content or the difference between posting content and building rapport is posting content is basically creating things like, this World Economic Forum post here from, quite some time ago, where it was posting a particular piece of video that was talking about cigarette butts being the most common source of garbage on the planet that's causing problems for the environment, right? But that to me is just a piece of content I put out there. Over on the right is where there was actually something that someone posted, and then they were looking for people to respond to them, which I did, and they responded to me. So Brody and I have now developed something of a relationship on LinkedIn where there wasn't one previously. Now, we're not connected on LinkedIn, but I follow him. I think he's a fascinating person, very, very smart. He's probably one of the greatest SEO brains in this country. His knowledge of Google and search engine optimization, probably second to none in this country. So I follow him because he always seems to give really good information with good value, and information I largely agree with. So what I'll do is reach out and build that rapport with him over time. Usually once a week, I'll leave him some kind of comment on something that he's posted, just to let him know that I'm reading his stuff and I'm actually starting to consume that stuff and take it on board as well. So that's the difference between posting content and building rapport. Your posting content can be all sorts of stuff. It could be posting an article. So for instance, the first two here, I did a couple of articles on LinkedIn back in 2014, which got lots and lots of views, like 40,700 in the first one, and then 48,739 in the second. Now, I've got nowhere near that ever since, because the reach of articles on LinkedIn has just been absolutely annihilated. Back in 2014, articles were a great way to reach people. They were a fantastic new product that very few people had access to, and then they opened it up to everybody, and then they immediately removed all the organic reach away from it. It's now actually not that great a way to reach people unless you can create something that really resonates, and you've also gone forward to share that material to your audience as well. On the other hand is creating a post. So if you're posting something, you may be doing something like posting exactly what I did there. Let's see, what should we post here today? A video, a photo, or maybe a short story? And you can add stuff like your hashtags in there to help it to categorize through to other people as well. But that's not the only things you can post. You can also post stories. Now I'm going to see if this actually works, because I was trying to do this before, and I'll probably let me know if you end up seeing this this material come up on my phone. So I'll just quickly try and make it work. I'm going to go screen mirroring to my MacBook. Come on, you can do it, buddy. Any moment now. This is where I'm actually going to share my phone screen through my screen here and hopefully have it picked up. I haven't tried this. This is very much an experiment, and it's failing terribly at the moment. I think it's because I've actually lost the connection on my phone. Come on, buddy, you can do it. Okay, if this doesn't work, that's okay. I've got some other options here. Any minute. Okay, that's not going to work for me. Sorry about that. Otherwise, I would love to show you that you can actually post stories on LinkedIn as well. And I was going to show you an example of booking one. I actually put one on there myself. The problem with stories is they're only available for mobile, not for desktop. So you can't even consume them on the desktop. You can't post them on the desktop. You can't post them from third-party services. You've got to do it from your mobile phone. So I was actually hoping I could connect that through to the screen so you're able to give you a really good example of how that works. Because it's actually fun, and they're a new place that seems to be getting quite a lot of coverage from people. So whereas before we weren't getting quite so much coverage on a lot of different tools, the coverage we now get on things like stories on LinkedIn is actually quite vast. And I posted a story this morning, and I've had well over 100 views of that story, whereas the last thing I posted on the feed on LinkedIn didn't get that many as well. So there's different things that get prioritized around. Stories may be they might feel silly, they might feel very Instagrammy and very Facebooky, but the reality is that people on LinkedIn are still people, they're still entertained, they're still, as long as you keep it appropriate to brand and in with what your objectives are. So if you've got that awareness, consideration, conversion, knowing where those people are at, and then looking at, well, do I want to get known, get found, or stay known? Do stories actually help me to do that? Or do I stick to more traditional posting methods like posting a post and just typing a short story on there, adding a photo or a video or a hashtag, or posting some other material? Which also brings me to another kind of material you can post on LinkedIn these days, which is PDFs. So you can post a white paper, you can post a report, you can post a product brochure as a PDF into LinkedIn as well. So as you see, there's this little file button here as you go into LinkedIn. In fact, let's do this actually within the LinkedIn platform. So I think it makes a lot more sense. So what I can do is post a photo and select the images to go there. So I'll put in a funny photo, which is Vladimir Putin Life Coach, which is not a real book written by Vladimir Putin. It is a spoof book, but it's one of those things where I got a bit of a laugh out of it. You may want to post a link to an event that you've already put onto LinkedIn. So it allows you to go and put an event in LinkedIn these days, much the same way that you do in Facebook, and link through to that. You can post a video, or you can write an article. And some other things you're actually able to do is when you go to post a photo, you can post a PDF as well. So I'm going to say post something which isn't actually a private piece of stuff. I don't want to post a client's report on there. That would be highly, highly inappropriate. But you can actually post as well links to PDFs. I don't actually have a lot of PDFs on here. Let's see if I can find one. PNG, come on, we'll find one. Can't be that hard. I make tons of them every day. There's going to be some. Some might be Adobe. I need to look under. Looking. PDF. Here we go. A ton of them. Okay, so we'll look at, say, well, there really isn't isn't a lot of things. Here we go. How about Tennant Creek Territory Queue? So it's just that one won't load up in here, but there is a way for you to load up in a different kind of file in there. Particularly if it comes through the mobile platform, it's really easy to do that kind of stuff. Sometimes these things really disappear. In this case, I go here, there's a file here, and I can choose a file. So if you can't see it here, just click in the start a post, and then it gives you all the other options as well. So you can post a video or embed a video, but in here is a file. I pick up a file from my desktop, look for a PDF. It's a PDF story there, maybe this one. It's a 2-byte workbook that I used for a set of workshops last week. And so done, and what it does then, it does this little preview in here that allows you to flick through the book. So this kind of content is being quite heavily favored by LinkedIn at the moment because it's a fairly new thing. So we can add just a bit of description, say workbook for the final session of my workshops. Go next, and then I can post some information about that particular thing. So as you can see in here, it inserts it in, and then once that goes live, I'll be able to flick through the pages of this particular workbook. So as you come down the bottom, just trying to get it here. Come on, you can do it. There you go. So I've got 11 pages available, so I can flick through those 11 pages and it changes the page. And if someone wants to read that, they can expand that to fill the whole page, so that you can provide a lot more information. Say, for instance, you're looking for expressions of interest in a major project that you're doing as a government department, then this could be a really valuable way of you to share more information you can fit in just a little bit of text or in a big article where an article doesn't feel appropriate for it, but sharing the information document that people can use, the expression of interest material, that would seem so much more appropriate and can be done really well. Just know though, if you don't see it in the desktop here, click in Start a Post, and that's where you'll see more options. It also allows you to do things like creating polls, share a job that you may be posting, celebrate a birthday or some other reason to celebrate, reach out to find an expert in something that you need help with, or you can even offer help in a particular area. So if you want to spend some time sewing into the platform and being an expert in your field, posting some material that talks about you being able to offer some help, or going, hey, I'm available to give some help now, just drop me a line. That can be a great way of building expertise and a little bit of authority on LinkedIn as well. So let's pop out of there for a sec, and we'll go back and look at some of the things you'll do with the content that really, I guess, does very well on LinkedIn these days. So short stories that are delivered as text, pretty much in my books, so far has been outperforming everything else on LinkedIn. It outperforms longer form articles. For me, it outperforms video, it outperforms stories, it outperforms like even just graphics. I just don't get the same reach for those as I get with a really good crafted story. So if you've got a way of writing a story, now this also could be because my audience have become very used to my way of writing and find it somewhat entertaining. That could be the reason why it works for me. But for you, it might be something else. But at the moment, for me, short stories delivered as text is outperforming absolutely everything else. We're finding that short stories that are delivered as things like statistics or informational, what we call listicles. So the top 3 reasons why people use content management systems, or the top 4 reasons why people don't mind the fact that there's less news on Facebook now. If you had an informational video like that gives some real facts and figures and gives people information or educates them on a particular thing you do, that can be a great way of reaching a new audience who otherwise wouldn't come across you any other way. Then videos where you're talking to camera, much the same as I'm talking to a camera right down the barrel right now, can be really quite great to, especially if you've got subtitles on them. Now, most of us are walking around with our phones on silent. We're not exactly advertising to the world that we want people to talk to us out loud. If that's the case, well, then we need to produce something that takes advantage of that. So producing talking head videos, which aren't that great a thing for me, but sometimes if you're really interested in that person, you really will want to hear what they have to say. Make sure you post material that's video that's made for sound off. It assumes that someone's not going to listen to you, they're just going to watch you. So in that case, you need to produce some subtitles. And there's some great tools like Capwing that will allow you to do that for free. So one of those is Capwing, which is Kapwing. Capwing will help you to insert hard-coded subtitles into your material, so you can just load it straight into LinkedIn and off you go. And it looks good, it works good, and allows you to reach people who are, via the very vast majority, going to have this sound off when they're engaging in LinkedIn. Other kind of content that does well is articles, but only and only I said this before, when it's highly targeted to a particular kind of audience. So if that article is answering the questions that people have about a product or service that you provide, and it's very, very good material, and then you share it out to your audience, so you don't just put it in there hoping for the best, it prompts you to actually share it as a post. Share it as a post. Tag people in it if you need to get their attention, who the people that you think really could get some value out of that article. Otherwise, you might as well just not do it at all. Now, short videos deliver what we call stories. I was talking about those before. I was hoping to be able to show you some stories. In fact, if I turn off the share and go to camera, and I'll actually be able to show you a story that I played just a little bit before on LinkedIn on my phone. So let's bring it up and see if I can find it. So let's see, I'll turn up the volume, make sure it can hear us. Pop into me, into my story. I'm going to get there, I promise. It won't take long. Back to home, back to the stories. The stories sit up the top here, much the same way they do on something like Instagram. So you can see my face there. So if I tap on my face, it should bring up my story. Any second now. So it starts my story, it's got the volume down.
About the hotel before you stay in it. I didn't know that there was nowhere to actually do my work in this hotel, nowhere to sit, so I had to bring in the outdoor setting from the balcony indoors to be able to set up the computer and actually do a webinar. This is going to be interesting.
So that was actually a true story. There was nowhere to set up my computer in this room. So I had to actually bring the outdoor setting in from out on the balcony to sit inside where I got a bit more control over the sound and the light to be able to do a webinar. So it's something which I posted as a really great way to do a story. So something that's really quite interesting to someone who might do work travel, and a bit of a reminder to those who do work travel that it's very, very vital that you always make sure that you research the hotels you're going to stay in before you stay in them. Otherwise, what you're opening yourself up to is problems like this. Makes for a good story on LinkedIn though. Now, events, when they're listed, shared, and actually run on LinkedIn, can work really well. Now, events are a bit of a funny spot for us on LinkedIn. I like to post things on events. The problem is that it doesn't work really well with my particular style of events that have to be registered through a program. So if you have to register through, say, the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program, which makes you jump through a few steps and a few hoops and a few qualification criteria in order to participate, which is great for us who organize it. We understand it, we do it every day. But if you're first time coming in through a platform like LinkedIn, and here's an opportunity to come and see my great webinar, and they get there and they don't qualify, or they get confused by the process, it's not going to work particularly well. But events, when they're listed and then they're shared, so you let people know that it's happening on LinkedIn, it can be actually really well done. But they generally work better when you can do it through a live video on LinkedIn. I don't have access to live video on LinkedIn. It is coming to most of us soon, but just not yet. So a way to get around that is you just have to simply use links to events elsewhere, to an Eventbrite site or to Humanitics or one of those, try booking. Any of those services allow you to click through to the booking system, so then they can go to a very specific place, or a landing page even if you've got one that connects through to your streaming system. So it doesn't make it hard for people to connect. The more steps you put in front of things for people, the less people are going to come through it. That awareness, consideration, conversion already has lots of people at the top to very few people at the bottom. Putting lots of hoops for people to jump through, it's just going to make that harder, and they just won't have the patience to go through there and interact with you, your content, or your business. Building rapport is done, I guess, through the idea that you comment on people's stuff. You follow them and then you comment on them, like I did here with Brandon, where I said, how will I respond to him? Here's a whole lot of material I put in there to answer what he's put out there, and how you would be, how I would answer that in the particular form of the question he put out there. So the idea being, I guess, that you answer the questions that people ask, or you respond to the things that people post. That's the best way of building a rapport. In the case of David Rogerson, he's something of a mentor for me. He's been very much a mentor of me in my past careers. Sorry, I just had a complete brain snap there. And so I was ready to say that his award that he won was very, very well deserved, and he's got a high level of dedication to his students and to the people, that he's always been an educator in some sense, and always been a great mentor to myself and to a lot of other people in the industries I've come from. So that then creates a bit of rapport, because I am commenting on his stuff, he sees it, he's tagged in it, and he's able to see, okay, that's a person who is actively engaging with me on this platform. What I would like to show you is the 9-to-1 approach. I was going to actually try and do this, but we're running out of time. This took a lot longer than I thought. And the 9-to-1 approach was by a fellow ASBAS provider, Joe Saunders, who is a bit of a legend in the LinkedIn space. And she taught me this, is to make 9 meaningful interactions with other people before you post something of your own. And it forces you then to do that relationship building instead of just going, here's my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It's saying, let me interact with you first. Let me actually build a relationship with you first. Let me introduce myself to you through the things I'm commenting on before I start wanting to get into your feed and understand that. And what does one of two things? Number one, you become endeared to someone, they start to like you. Secondly, because you've interacted with them through their posts, they're much more likely then to see your stuff come up when you post it in their timeline. Because you've now got a relationship, you've now got a connection, even if you're not connected, you're only following each other, or they're far more likely to see your stuff come up because you've got some kind of rapport, some kind of history, some kind of connection that allows you to discover each other on the feeds as well. I was going to say, let's try and do 9 meaningful interactions, but basically I do 9 every day. Sometimes it's a lot more than 9, but I'll do at least 9 every day. And I can credit that to being the one thing that's really, really assisted me to grow my LinkedIn following well beyond what it's ever been before. It gave me an opportunity to go from, just maybe a couple of dozen followers in 2014 to, thousands now that I can actually, quite safely say that I follow a lot of people, people follow me, and I've got a great level of interaction with people. Soft outreach is my way of, not creeping people out by just appearing and saying, hey, you don't know me, but let's connect anyway. What you can do is use that search engine in there. So we did that a little bit before, and we search for a person or a job role or a company that's local, and we can click on that person's profile name. And instead of clicking on connect on their profile, which is a very easy thing to do, I don't know these people, so I'm not going to just assume that I can just go and connect with them. I click on the more button and then follow. What this allows me to do is to see what they post, not to be connected to them, but to just follow what they're posting. Now, not everyone allows for a follow feature on their profile, and that's largely because they don't post anything. They're very much not in there. This is limited, I guess, to those who do actually post. Now, a very tiny, infinitesimally small amount of people, as opposed to the whole population on LinkedIn, actually do any posting. Most people on LinkedIn don't post anything. They just consume. They go there, they consume, they treat it like an online resume and an educational source that they learn something from, but they don't then produce anything that goes onto the platform. So when you do this soft outreach process, the downside is a lot less people there to follow because they don't really do that much stuff. So you don't have a lot of stuff to interact with them. So I'm always having to follow new people to just bolster up the level of people coming through on my feed to ensure that I'm always following it and then interacting, commenting on the material of new people all the time. Not the same old people, although there's some same olds that I love to be able to comment on every day. But in this case, it'll just be, people who I want to reach out to more, particularly companies and locations around Australia where I'm looking to do some more work. And what happens is that after you've commented on stuff enough times, people assume that you are connected and they have this bit of a revelation. They go, I've got this whole relationship with this guy, Dante, and we're not even connected on LinkedIn. So they go, oh, and then they reach out and connect with you. There's no more powerful connection than the one that someone's been inspired to do to you after you've done something really nice for them, which is commenting on all their gear. They don't even see your gear, that you see theirs and you interact with them, and eventually they realize, wait a minute, I'm not connected with you. What, you just follow me and you're actually that nice to me? I think I might follow you back. So it's a really fun way of building that rapport over a period of time. I would do some outreach now, but we have absolutely run out of time. We're going to go into another call. I will fill in though with working with InMail. If you are approached via your inbox in LinkedIn, consider replying with an audio message. You can do it on this thing, on your phone. You can reply with audio or video, and it guarantees that they'll actually read it because it's something different than just a written response. When someone connects with you, rather than a canned response, send them an audio or video message as well to introduce yourself and ask them to tell you more about themselves. It'll be so much more personal. You can put their name in there, and it's where you can do things like saying, I don't know your name, I don't know how to pronounce it. Can you please let me know how to do it? And it has them send back a message to you in the same way. So much more connection, so much more human than just simply typing something on the keyboard. If you've got lots of connections, or you prefer to have a curated group of small people in your connections, that's completely up to you. I don't necessarily say that any which way is right or wrong. Some people say accept every connection. Some people say only accept real ones. I don't really care, to be honest. I'll do it on a case-by-case basis. If there's someone who's clearly coming from a call center in a country where I don't have any dealings and don't plan to have any dealings, I'm not going to connect with them. But if there's someone within Australia, within a country or an area that I'm going to deal with, that I'm doing some marketing towards and want to start working with, then they're a valuable connection no matter who they are or who they work for. They've still got a connection in that place that I want to reach to. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really hope that we were able to give you some value in this and to be able to show you some of the ways that you as a business can connect with other businesses on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is a very powerful platform. It is a very popular platform. It can also be one of those platforms where if you get it wrong, you're going to come across as really, really irky and really just feel like a dirty, slimy salesperson, and nobody really wants that in their lives. Thank you so much. If you want to reach out to me, Dante, Dante, at Treaty, that's spelling it, TREETI.com.au. I'd love to hear from you, or you can connect or follow me on LinkedIn as well. After all, we didn't just go through all this for you not to do anything. Connect with me, start the process, and I'll see you soon.